What is going on, you guys? AK40 Kevin here in the gamer heaven. Sony has officially announced their PSVR 2 for the PlayStation 5. We have a little bit of an idea of some of the features that are going to be packed into this new iteration or version, as well as a general time frame of release, and some other little tidbits of information that I want to cover about VR gaming as a whole right now. Let's talk about it. Alrighty guys, so sharing my screen, this article just came out yesterday, and Sony has indeed announced its new version of the PSVR, most likely just going to be called PSVR 2. This has been kind of rumored around the gaming community for quite some time now, but Sony has actually made a statement now, which is pretty exciting news here. But don't get too excited just yet, because this headset will not launch this year. My predictions are probably mid-2022, just based on the condition of PlayStation being able to fulfill orders of its actual console and other projects that they have, first-party Sony studio games and stuff like that they're working on. That's my prediction. It'll probably be early to mid-22. So the new headset itself is going to include an improved field of view, so that's massive. With a VR headset, obviously field of view is a tremendous feature. Better resolution, which is very good because the PSVR did have the lowest resolution out of all the major VR headsets for gaming, and even a single cord to make it easier to use, which is a massive complaint that a lot of people had about the original PSVR, which I did own for about 3 months, and I liked it quite a bit. I got rid of it just because I could use the extra cash more than I actually played the VR, so I ended up just selling it to a buddy. But that thing had wires that goes through the actual PS4, your TV, and 2 HDMI cables that go into a black box called the PSVR processor. So it really was a lot of wires for VR, considering there are other headsets that just have a single cord to your PC. So that was kind of frustrating. But the PSVR as a whole, I think, was a really great idea because you don't need some high-spec PC or anything like that. All you needed was a PS4, which at that time, you know, were very, very cheap. You could pick one up used secondhand for about $200 on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or your local corner store or whatever. So that was really awesome, and it actually performed pretty well. And there were some really interesting titles like Astro that actually took really good advantage of the console itself, considering you had a PS controller in your hand that you could see, you know, through your goggles and everything. And it also had multiple player games. So somebody on your couch could be sitting there with a PS4 controller, controlling things in the external world, and then you're immersed in the VR world interacting with them. So I thought that was really cool. That just because you're the one playing VR, it doesn't mean that, you know, your friends or family members can't join along too. I thought that was actually really, really cool. And some of the games were kind of kiddie and whatnot, but they did have some other titles, for example, Skyrim VR and stuff, that were a little bit aimed at the adult crowd. And I just thought overall, for what it was, Sony's first attempt at VR, and it runs on a console, it did an amazing job for the hardware that they actually had. So with this statement here, they point out that besides the features that I mentioned up there, they're also going to be working on tracking and input. I never had any issues with tracking, but I did hear a lot of complaints in the community and whatnot about the headset, and then also the lollipop controllers, the motion controllers, actually tracking. Now, speaking of those controllers, they're actually working on a new VR controller as well to replace the lollipops here. I don't know if you'll be able to use those in some legacy titles for VR, or if you're strictly going to need to buy the new controller. They'll probably have a bundle that includes the headset and a controller. But this one is going to include some of the features found on the DualSense 5 controller. So what I'm thinking there is most likely the haptic feedback for some very realistic immersive vibration features, and then also the adaptive triggers, so that way, you know, things can get harder if you're pulling back a bow or whatever might be stiffer or lighter, ladies. So that's really cool. So as far as a general time frame, Sony is going to start issuing dev kits for its next gen VR soon. I don't like that word soon, it's so vague, but at least they're made a statement that they are actively working on this project, so that is better than nothing. The company isn't detailing full specs of the machine or release dates yet. Again, my predictions would be early to mid of next year. And this statement right here, we want to improve some of the limitations of the original PSVR headset, given this was our first foray into virtual reality and gives us a chance to apply lessons learned. So again, like I kind of alluded to earlier, I think they did a great job considering Sony had zero experience in the VR realm before this. I think they did really, really good. And Sony is pretty good about listening to the community and taking feedback and actually implementing it in future versions of products. So I do think that they will take a lot of the complaints, which it seems like they already have with, 3 cables connected. It's just going to be 1 now. Nobody was really complaining about the controller, but it does make sense that people, that a more updated next-gen controller that's based off the DualSense 5 and has some of those awesome new features would make sense to go along with their new headset. So you can still play a PSVR on your PlayStation 5. However, you do need an adapter for the camera, because the camera can't track you or even work because the port is different on the back of the PS5. But Sony's giving those out free of charge. You just need to mail them and say, hey, I have a PSVR. I would like the adapter, please. They'll send it out to you. It does take about a week or so, which sucks. You just have to wait twiddling your thumbs if you have a VR game you want to play or something. But it is free of charge, so that's cool if they support that. Jim Ryan, who's the head of the PlayStation division, also touched on the fact that there is still a major issue with the accessibility of the PS5 console itself, which will be needed to push this headset. I do not believe, nothing's been alluded to it being supported for the PlayStation 4, and I'd be shocked if it did, considering the headset basically requires the new power and hardware of the PS5 to drive the headset and to push the game. So obviously it's going to be utilizing the PS5 to the fullest of its abilities. So that's another thing why I think this is going to be, several months off, is that they're still trying to work on getting these consoles, these boxes, into people's living rooms, out of the hands of scalpers and bots and into the actual hands of the consumers, which has been a major issue. And, Jim Ryan mentions that here, that he hopes a lot of retail stores open up and people can be rid of the bot-swarmed online retail experience. It's still going to be a hectic show, trying to get these in person, but it will be less detrimental than trying to buy them online with massive organizations like Crep Chief Notify that have 3,500 PS5 units that they scooped up with scripts and bots. Just some real nefarious stuff. And also another thing that kind of alludes to why there was such a major lack of supply, obviously high demand because it's a new consumer good, and we haven't had a new gen console in 7.5 years, but a big supply problem besides the pandemic itself, limiting manufacturing, was the fact that silicone parts, such as like the chips, the PCBs, printed circuit boards, were so out of stock that auto manufacturers and cell phone companies were starting to battle with these console developers, Microsoft and Sony, to get these components. Because even like the automotive industry, think about it, most cars have like a touch screen in there and like a smart computer that does, your Bluetooth and your Apple CarPlay and all that stuff. And those require a lot of the same chipsets. So, and this little statement here that I highlighted kind of gives you a little idea of the condition of VR, where it is currently. Is it dead? Is it still growing? Is it stagnant? It definitely is still growing, and a lot of manufacturers of headsets, such as the Oculus Quest and the HTC Vive, are still very, very interested in producing further titles and hardware for their headsets. So, Facebook paid about $2 billion with a B to purchase the Oculus platform back in 2014, and has been steadily increasing market shares thanks to the device's accessibility, introducing the improved and cheaper Oculus Quest 2. It's cheaper because it is missing some of the features, but it is also a great headset. Last year, Valve released Half-Life Alyx, which, by the way, I want to get my greasy forehead inside of a headset to play that game, because I have heard that it is a game changer. It is one of the best, if not the best, current VR titles out right now, because it completely immerses you into the world of Half-Life, which already has like an awesome back lore and world to it. So being a Half-Life fan and liking the concept of VR, when you bring those two together, I think that would really stimulate me in the nether region. So definitely would like to stream and maybe review that on this channel. Yep, widely considered a milestone in VR storytelling. While not as popular, Sony's first-party VR title, Astro Bot Rescue Mission, has been hailed as one of the most innovative platformers ever created, and it really was a very interesting game. I had a blast playing that game. That was actually probably the PSVR title that I played the most, because it was also interactive and you could play with other people. So I'm going to get you guys a bigger view of my big old ugly mug here so you can see every pore and imperfection on this grill here. So I really do think that VR is going to be a predominant part of gaming in the future, just like I think cloud gaming eventually. I think cloud gaming's way off, though. We're talking like 7 to 10 years before that's actually feasible. I just made a video a couple days ago about why that is. But I do think VR, as it is playable and enjoyable now, With the drop of this new PSVR 2 on the PlayStation 5, more powerful hardware, a more streamlined experience, one cable, Vice 3, a new controller, better resolution and field of view. It's just an overall better VR experience. And the fact that it still has that simplicity of just plug and play with your console. You don't need a $1,500 to $2,000 rig or PC, just your $500 PS5 console, which I know is still expensive, but it's a third of the price of what you would need to push similar VR headsets. Don't get me wrong. Don't take me out of context. You can VR on a cheaper PC than that, but to get like the headset to work as the developers intended for their games, like Half-Life Alyx, you need a pretty good rig, and then some of these headsets are about $1,000, like the Valve Steam Index, like the HTC Vive and the Valve Index, when you get all the accessories and everything that needs to go with it. So PSVR has always been a pretty budget-friendly, budget-oriented way to get into VR, but also pretty rewarding too. It also does give you some really memorable, notable VR experiences. So I'm pretty excited about this. We now have some official news from Sony that they are working on this project. Drop in the comment section below your guys' opinion on this. Do you think this is exciting? Do you think they shouldn't have even announced anything considering it's so far off? Like the video if you enjoyed it. It does help it to get seen by more people, as YouTube does no favors for my little channel. Subscribe for more news around the gaming industry and community, as well as tutorials and gaming peripheral reviews, keyboards, headsets, mics, controllers, etc. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.